I remember the first time you actually told me that the bread and groundnut story. And it was a time in my life, I remember it was a ride, we took a ride in my car there. And you were telling me, and I said to myself, I couldn't still reconcile it. This gentleman right here at one point in time, and he actually said to me that the day when he found Coke or Fanta to take with the bread and granite, it was like Christmas, so it was pretty bad when you started off. So you started at age 29, but then you had some partners that you started the business with. How did you meet them, and how did you conceive the idea?
Okay, so my lecturer had said my tutor had said something which I didn't quite pay attention to by making it deliberate, but because of everything that I'd done, either through church or through social life, being a club member, club president, whatever, the one thing that was consistent throughout was relationships. I built relationships and networks without thinking about it. So it wasn't today I teach people to be deliberate about it, because I just look back and I could have been a lot more deliberate. But I think in my own case, my footstep was kind of ordered. When I think about it, everything has just been grace. I've just been ordered that way. But relationships, key, critical. So I made a choice to go to King's College. All right, that was a choice. In King's College, in my class, was somebody who we were not friends, but we were not enemies. We just kind of knew each other. So I was never nasty to him. He wasn't nasty to me. I didn't go and put a pin on his chair or do something that he will hate me for life. But somehow we were in that periphery. Then I go to England, he goes somewhere, and we were classmates. But somehow we both end up in the same class again, in architecture. So our paths come together. Now we're in architecture, he's in architecture, we're going together again, we know each other, he's in another club, I'm in another club, so we're competing, but we have a relationship, but again, we're not friends, but we kind of know each other. That's on the one end. I went to Corona, he went to ISL, I think, International School, Lagos, yeah. So he goes to ISL, he's son of a lecturer. In his class, or in his school, he has another friend. They were in school together, their parents were lecturers together, so they have that relationship. And then they are living in Lupeju together, so they are growing up together and all of that. So he has a relationship on this side. Now he is central to both of us because he knows this person and he knows me. Now they start business together. They're doing clothes and all of that, men's rooms. So they're in fashion. They're working together. And I'm doing this wonderfully paid, expatriate, car, driver, expense paid job. And this guy is a hustler. So he's in England, and then he comes back to Nigeria. While we were in Unilag, he used to sell engine cars, so he would go to Belgium, buy one broken down car, come fix it up, sell it. So that's what he was doing as an entrepreneur from his own end, while I was doing the modeling and the architecture on this end. So we have entrepreneurship background, sort of. So I'm seeing him hustling, selling cars and all of that. I have a cool job here and out in the street. But then, he comes back to Nigeria and he starts coming to the office. I have an office in Victoria. Again, like I said, it's a good office, good job and all. So he will bring the car back. He will fix the car and he's driving all over the place looking for the latest Yoppie to buy the car, and he's selling clothes and all of that. So he's going to all the banks and all. Then he will stop in my office. Now he knows that when he comes to my office, there is food, there is AC, doesn't have AC in his car. And there's some small relief from Lagos stress. So you come and sit down and you just tell me, he said, look, let us go and start a business. That there is this business, you come and start talking about this oil business, and I'm looking at him and I'm like, are you okay? I should leave, look at you sweating. I should leave this, all of this, and come and join you in this hustle. So I beg, carry your, I'm going. So he will go, he will travel, then he will come back. He said, come, that seriously, there is this business. Let us go into it together. I won't answer him. Then what happened. So now the Brazilians have gone. I'm liquidating the company. I'm sitting outside. I'm selling one car, one truck, AC, everything. We're selling it. So I'm outside. People are coming from all sorts of places. They are pricing this one, arguing. So the guy just walks in. Tell me you're Brazilians. It's okay. So I had that comfort here. Are you now ready? Yeah, I'm ready. So that's how we started, sir.
Okay. All right. So how much did you need to raise at the time, and how between you guys did you raise that money?
No, so that's very interesting. So again, OCD, savings, just holding things and just keeping things. For me, it was, I don't know, I was just doing it. Nobody told me. It's not that somebody sat me down and said, you know what, this is what you need to do. It just kind of happened. So when that happened, and I looked at them, I said, okay, you know what? We agreed on what the business plan would be. We looked at it and we said, one thing that is needed here is that you cannot do this business without an office in Port Harcourt. So what I was paid off by the time I did the liquidation, what I was paid off plus my savings, and some of the equipment in the office, now that people were coming, so some of the ACs and all of that. So I just decided, okay, what is the price that people had already set for this? What do we need in an office? So photocopy machines, I identified the ones, paid for those ones, took my savings and all of that, and said my contribution to this business would be setting up, running Port Harcourt. I would be the Port Harcourt person. So I set up the Port Harcourt, moved to Port Harcourt, that was my own contribution. Their own contribution basically was to set up this Lagos office, right? So they set up the Lagos office, both of them stayed in Lagos to run Lagos. So contribution came from there. Now, where did their contribution come from? Now, all of us, one way or another, we had been doing business. I was working for them. Men's room, clothes was a major thing. It was a time when restrictions on travel, visa, all sorts of things were happening. Both of them had British passports, so they could travel, they could bring in clothes and all. It was a time when young people the banking sector had just opened up, right? And everybody had to dress well. So, well, they kind of had to dress well, but they couldn't travel. People couldn't travel the way that they were traveling now. So, clothes had a good margin. And so people used to come to their shop to buy clothes. And so they had a good margin. So from the sales from clothes, they turned that back into the business. The third aspect of it was, again, relationships. I cannot emphasize enough on what relationships does. Now, there happened to be one guy coming into the office, to the clothes shop. Every other time he would come, he would buy clothes, he would go back and all of that. And my partner kind of, just discussions, knowing this guy, found out that he was the MD of PPMC at the time. And so he just began to build a relationship with this guy. And we started talking, we had all these dreams and visions. So we kind of knew what we wanted to be, so we would talk about it. And so as young Nigerians, no Nigerian was doing this. one do at the time, we were schoolmates again about relationships. So Mufe and I were classmates. So we kind of knew by this time. I was the one that probably delayed Sahara's entry because we were all talking about it at the same time. But because I didn't come in, they went ahead about 6 months prior to we coming into the business. But we all came in about the same time. And so there was a young breed of Nigerians that were going and speaking vision and saying that, look, Nigerians can do this thing. But we also knew that this was a military era. And people with access were all, they could not imagine that small boys, as they used to call it, they were Sahara boys, were small boys. Small boys cannot be thinking about this thing. So we had to be ingenious again about it. So one of the things that we did back then, to answer that question first of all, so we brought in our money from our own savings and all of that. But the main break, which is the first money that really made that difference, was something that we had to study and we had to understand. So setting up the business, we had the money to do it. Running the business, paying for the one staff, we were doing the same. Like I said, I was the driver, I was the everything, I was doing everything myself, I had cut down on my food. So that was okay, you could do that. But you needed to study where you were going, and we had already been studying it. And we understood that everybody who they were paying attention to, who was getting anything that they could lift, so we're talking of allocations at the time, they were foreign companies. They were expatriates, fully. Once one Igbo man comes in, out with his briefcase of contracts and he's done, and you are at the door sweating and you're waiting. So we studied that industry well. And so we decided that, you know what, if we're going to break through, we have to do things differently. If we went in as, I'm the CEO, I'm the MD of this company and I started, it won't answer you at all. 29, 28, 29, 30. You are too small in their eyes, right, to do this kind of work. So they want to say. So the first thing that we did was we made sure that all the companies the expatriate companies that were operating in Nigeria and getting all the jobs were registered in a particular place called the Isle of Man in England. All of them. They were all registered there. So what did we do? We went to register there. So we registered a company in the Isle of Man. We noticed that every single one of them had a Nigerian representative office. And the Nigerian representative office was this token Nigerian that they would give a commission, who will get up and go and be knocking the doors. And when the time is right, the woman will just fly in, walk in, get the contract and go back and pay him a commission. We understood that the system understood commission agents, but they did not understand Nigerian CEOs. They understood agents, brokers. It was a system from time that operated middlemen, but did not operate CEOs. So everybody that I see here that are young CEOs did not exist. All of this did not exist at all then, at all. Seriously, it didn't exist. What existed was that every one of you would be an agent to an international foreign company. So people used to go and lobby to be agent to this, agent to that, and all. That is what the system understood. But if you came in as a CEO, I beg, come out. What the system understood for a Nigerian then was that you are if you are in the oil industry, you are a petrol station owner. End of story. So if you owned a petrol station, you were okay. Come and get one small allocation. But that you want to lift, export and import, forget it. So the system didn't understand that. So we had to understand that the system did not understand that, and we had to devise a way to break the system that did not understand that. So we registered the company. My partner had a lecturer back then. So he called the lecturer and told the lecturer that, you know what? You know me. You know our dreams. You know our visions and all of that. We need you to lend us your personality. Lend us your personality, okay? So we had the company registered, Sahara Energy Resources Limited, Isle of Man. Nigerian Representative Office, 233B, Adiola Odeku. It was a boys' quarter, but the address was important. VI, Adiola Odeku. PPMC was around the corner. Nobody is coming to see whether it's a beautiful building like this. They just see the address. You have London office, UK office, and you have a representative Nigerian office. Good. Name on the card, Tonye Cole, title, 0, no title. So no director of operations, no CEO, no MD, no title. Then we'll write the letters. The letter being written is signed by the personality we requested permission from. It's an Oyibo name. When they see the name, it's not Nigerian. Dr. J. Sell. Big. So that person was our employer. So we go to NNPC, PPMC, we will beg, we will kneel down, we will cry. Please, our job is on the line, help us. They will sack me, help, please, I beg. We build relationships with the drivers, with the secretaries, with the clerks. So we'll sit down at the gates. Who knows your movement more than your driver? Who does? Nobody. So your driver and me, we become best of friends. Where is MD going today? Where will he be? You want to see? If we are waiting to see MD in the office, it go hard. Let us know, MD is coming to LBS today. You will see us at LBS, right? Now we have access to you there. You recognize us, but you know that we have come out of our way to see you. But we are not coming as CEO. We are coming to save our job. Not so? So we are begging you. I said, these guys are hard workers. They know what to do. Now, NNPC, back then, military regime, they give out allocations. Plenty, everybody is disturbing them, so they're giving allocations. But there are allocations and there are allocations. Okay? There are allocations that will not see the light of day. And there are those that have come from, who was it? Was it Abacha or something? There are those who have come from the villa. As soon as it comes through, boom, that one is gone. How do you know which one is which? How do you know which is which? You can't tell, but there is a signature, there is a minute that they write that will tell you that this one is going, this one is not going. You, the layman, cannot know. But who will know? Every document has to be documented. Does that make sense? In public sector. So when it comes from the office of the president or whoever, it gets to the MD. The MD knows that this one is a priority. But he's not going to write there, this is a priority from the president, please make sure. He will not write there. What he's going to write is a code. And that code, the secretary will know the code. So who should be your best friend? So the secretaries became our best friends. Now when the secretary has taken it, the person who that file came from, that ended up at the MD, that the secretary has to treat. The secretary has to write the allocation letter to the person. Now, the trick is that the secretary has to let you know, or the clerk has to let you know, or whoever your relationship, that this is the benefactor of this process. Now, for us, we have to get to that person before the Oyibo people, those big companies, come. Because once the big companies come, it's done. So for us, we needed to be nimble, we needed to be fast. We needed to get to the allotee before they come. All right. So how do you do that? So you have been given the name. So what's your name, sir? Wole. All right. So Wole is the friend to the president of Nigeria. You don't know he's the friend to the president of Nigeria. He doesn't want you to know he's the friend to the president of Nigeria. But the president of Nigeria has given him something that he has taken to who? PPN, whatever, to the MD. Now, to Fab. So he gets it. Now, he has seen him not during office hours, so nobody knows it's him. But he knows it's him. He minuted it to me as the secretary. So it's minuted to me. But I have to send that letter to you. It can't go back to him. It's going to you. So as a secretary, I know it's going to you. So I have to call you to send somebody to come and pick up the letter, Wole. My responsibility as a young CEO at that time was to intercept that process. So I had to know when it was going. Does that make sense? All right. So Wole is in, then a lot of them were in the north. So Wole lives in, let me see, where did we go? Okay, so Wole lives in Zaria. Okay? He lives in Zaria. He has submitted this, he has given it to Fab, he's gone back to Zaria, and he's just waiting. He knows, he's sure, nobody, military regime, nobody is touching that thing. It's coming back to him. So he has gone back to Zaria and he's sitting in his house. What happens is that two young people come up and they knock on his door. And they say, "Good afternoon, sir. We are so. My name is Tonye, this is Tokwe. We represent this company called Sahara from the Isle of Man. It's an international company, this, that, blah, 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 registered in this. You have this product that is coming, this allocation coming and all of that. Our boss has sent us to you to come and buy that allocation of you." The man is wondering, first of all, how did you even know that I exist? But the mere fact that I know that you exist has already given you the knowledge and the right to allow me to come in, because I already know. So you say, "Come in." Now, back then, 23 years ago, technology was just starting. Within NNPC and PPMC, they had computers that were decoration on the table. Nobody was using it. Very few. You had mobile printers called bubble jet printers. You had laptops. So what we did, this technology, nobody had seen it. We already had the contract in our computer. We had a printer that was mobile. We had our laptop. We had our letter-headed paper. And we had the stamp. So as soon as we finished speaking to him, while he's still doing like this, we'll just flip up the computer, connect the laptop. This is like magic. What he's seeing now, he has not seen before. He's like, you just print out the contract, then you hand it over to him. He said, "This is how much, sign." The man will sign it, we carry it, we'll go back, we own the contract. Once you have that contract, you can raise money. Because it is where it's coming from, it is guaranteed that that is going to load. Once we have that, the next day, and literally within 24 hours, the big company, they have a timeline, they are big, so they have to go slowly. The big company finds out about this allocation 24 hours later, and they show up at Wole's door. He calls me immediately. I'm a small boy. This big company is going to go and tell him that, "What, Sarah? They don't exist. This, that is a lie. These people have come in." So he will call me immediately that I should bring back the contract. I'll say, "I'm sorry. It's a contract. You will get your money," and all of that. That big company now comes to us because they know that they cannot do without that contract. So they come to us. Now we are brokers, essentially, because we don't have the money to do it, but we have the contract. So they now come, and then we now negotiate. Okay? So that's how this whole long story was, just to answer that small question.
All right. So I'd like to ask now, what was the business at the time? I know today it's this energy conglomerate, operating in every sector you could find energy in. But what was the business at that time?
Okay, so essentially, it was a fuel oil trading business. Remember at the time, foreign exchange was tight. And so, in our young mind, and when I say young mind, I really mean it, our young mind, we felt that the only business that made sense, that was secure, was anything that was foreign exchange denominated. And the only thing that was foreign exchange denominated at that time was export. You couldn't export crude. The only thing then that you could export was fuel oil, which the refineries were producing, and it was a byproduct, a waste product of the crude that has been refined. So after the crude was refined, petrol was removed, diesel was removed, jet was removed, and all of that, something was left that the refinery here could not process further, but newer refineries in the world could process. So there was a value for that. So you exported it for them to process. So it was the export of fuel oil, and it was dollar denominated. So for us, what we were looking at was, so how do we get this dollar denominated product and earn foreign exchange to build the business? And so that's all we did. We just focused on that. That was how we started. So I'll just say that we started as brokers in the fuel oil export business. But we're young. We learned pretty fast.
So between setting up the business and executing your first deal, how long would you say that took?
So the first transaction probably was done with, I can't remember an exact period, but it wouldn't be beyond 6 months. Yeah, it wouldn't be beyond 6 months. It probably was quicker, because on the one hand, when we did set up, there was already a relationship that had already been building at the men's room aspect. And one of my partners had already been looking at how do we set this business, what do we do, and all of that. So a lot of the work and the research and the thinking behind had already started. So I would probably say within the first 6 months, we got our first deal.
How huge was that transaction?
Okay, so some interesting. So it wasn't, for us, it was not the amount. I don't even remember what the amount was. But I'll tell you what was important to us. And that's why, as you think about your business and you go through, there must be, if money is what you're pursuing, you will fail woefully. Seriously. If money is what you're pursuing, you will fail woefully. For us, it wasn't money, so I don't remember the value. But I remember what we were pursuing, and I will tell you. This was an era where foreign exchange was difficult, right? But it was also an era where they were shutting Nigerian business, accounts down all over the world. If you went to a bank, it was a bad period for being Nigerian. Why? Because it was the era when I left University of Lagos. From the year I left, or probably around I left in 1990, so around 1987 till mid-1990s, that was the time of credit card fraud. So credit card did not have chips then. So most Nigerians that went into England, you could go into a bank and just rip the bank off. Either use your credit card or impersonate somebody. It wasn't hard. The banks were trusting. And so Nigerians in England for 10 years just destroyed the entire trust. I think we are the ones that caused them to create chips in credit cards. But we did that. So what happened is that by the time we were coming into business, You couldn't open an account. If you're Nigerian, you had a Nigerian name, forget it. You're not, no account is open. Now we're coming into a business that required that you have a foreign account. Remember I said it's an export business. It needed an international bank. LCs were not open, no Nigerian bank. You're FCMB, right? FCMB was the first Nigerian bank, and we made that happen. And I'll tell you the story when you want to know it. But no Nigerian bank ever, there was not one Nigerian bank that opened a foreign denominated LC for petroleum products. They didn't understand it, it couldn't happen. So you needed a foreign bank, and you needed an international bank to do it. Most international banks were not touching Nigeria. So there were just a few that would touch Nigeria. So we got this contract. So the guy came, the Igbo man, immediately calls, says, how much? Okay, we want to buy it, give me your price. What's your price? How much? So there's a price for it. You can price the water. So there's a price for it. Now, I can't remember what it is. But basically, everybody who got that allocation, like the man who got it, he was paid a price for it. So they looked at Nigerians. Remember I said that we're all middlemen, brokers? So they looked at you as a commission agent. They'll pay you a commission and they'll move. So for us, when they offered us a commission, we said, no, that's not our interest. So we asked them to do certain things. The first thing that we said was open an account. Okay? Said, where you want to pay your commission, don't give us cash. Don't come and... Said, open an account in your bank. Something we had been trying to do. Within 30 minutes, 1 hour, we had an account. Why? If I'm a banker with FCMB and I know the organ and all of that, and you come to me and you say, can they open an account? And I call the bank and I say, look, I know this person is reputable and all of that, give him an account. Even before he signs, do you recommend him? Yes, I will reference him and all of that. Before all the documents, is it like? Before the documents are done and all of that, you will get an account number. It's not hard. So we got an account opened. Something we have been trying. We had gone to a bank when we were trying to set up. As soon as we got there, my partner, I had a Nigerian passport. They had British passport. They went in. They looked at it. They made a question. Just escorted him out. Closed the door. Slammed the door. Said, get out of here. Nigerian, just go away. So we could not open an account. So we told them to open an account. So they opened the account. Number two, every LC that was opened to Nigeria, that's allocation that I bought from him. Now you have to open an LC. Now this big company is going to open the LC. So we said to them that in the LC that you are opening, put Sahara inside. Let that document carry on behalf, it's Sahara's, we are the ones that sold the allocation, not this guy. So Sahara is the one doing it. So put Sahara's name in. They were looking at us, hey, small boys, is that what you want, Sahara? No problem, they put it in. So we put Sahara, Isle of Man, so the name went in. So two things that we achieved with that. The first is that we had a bank account. The second is that we began to have a track record of doing the job. The third thing that we asked for, right, is that the process, right, as they are going through, all the documents in NNPC for that job, that we will do it for them. Okay? That when they do it and all of that, we'll go there, our name is there, but we'll be the ones to just be doing the legwork. Okay, no problem. After all of this, then, you need some money in the account. The account cannot be empty, so put in whatever change you want, put in there. So they opened it. First one went through, like that. Second one, third one, something started happening in the minds of NNPC. Our story was that, we can do this thing. They said, no, Nigerians cannot open LCs. We were now opening LCs. So NNPC was seeing that you are opening LCs. The bank calls me one day, maybe about a year and a half later, and says, we noticed that this company keeps opening an LC for you and all of that. Why can't you do it directly yourself? Aha, We had gotten what we wanted. They came to Nigeria, came to our office, sat us down and said, you don't need to go through third parties. We'll open the LC directly for you because we are seeing that you have a knack of knowing which allocations will lift. And everyone that has opened has gone. Everyone has opened has gone. So you have not opened an LC with all the story, is hanging on the water, is doing this, is doing that. It has gone through. It went from beginning to end. I think by the time we did the third one, the bank was ready to open an LC for us.
Wow. Okay. All right, but I would like to still ask. Ooh, it works on that end. Okay. All right, did you break even on the first deal?
So,
yes, no.
Likely, because no, on the first deal, likely because it was broker, you are commission.
Okay.
So when you're doing as a broker, brokers don't lose money because essentially what you're doing is you know the cost, somebody else is taking the risk. But what happened was the day we now decided that we were going to go on our own. Now, this was our target. We always knew that this business, we're not in the business of being a middleman. We're not in the business of commissions. That wasn't our goal. Our goal was that we were going to do this business. But for us to do this business, all these building blocks had to be done. So when we got the next one, I don't know which one, maybe it's third, fourth, whichever one that we got. When the man came calling, after we got it, so this big company, whoever comes, now they see us as, okay, you know what, we have this feeder company. They were still getting their own. But we found this young feeder company that once they get, we can go and get from them, we can go and get from them. So whatever they were paying, we're now saving up. And we're saving up for when we will be ready to do our own. They now call us and we say, sorry, we're not selling. You're not selling. Okay. You must be joking, you come back. Certain things had happened before then, which now gave us the boldness to say that we were now ready to go on our own. There were three things that happened. The first was that the bank had come up to us now to say that they would open the LC. So now we had the LCs, we could open it. The second was that we now had a system in place that could help us identify which allocation really worked. So that was it. So we had finance and we had the product. So those two were there. Now we needed two other things to work. So not three, four things. We needed two other things to work to give us the confidence that we could now go. One was the transport, the mode of moving the product. Now, all the ships that were coming to Nigeria, the ship brokers were international. They were only given to international companies. Nigerian companies had promised them heaven and earth and done nothing, so they were not ready to touch any Nigerian. But we needed a broker. We needed a ship. And the last thing is we needed a sell point, somebody to take it on. Okay. So this is about whether we made a profit or a loss, not so in the first deal. So for me, this is our first deal, not all the other ones. The other ones were preparatory. This is us now stepping out and saying, we're now ready. So I get a call from a Frenchman. His name is Jean-Charles Baldini. He's been in Africa. He was the biggest shipbroker, biggest. He did for all the Total, all their export crude, Vitol, this, that. He was the biggest in Africa. And he just calls us one day. People, whatever you do, if you just pick points, then just pick certain points, relationship, pick diligence, pick focus, just do the work. Just pick those things, hard work, just pick them. Because I'm just telling stories, right? But make sure you pick the key points. Because people are calling, they just came to us. We didn't go looking for them. They came to us for a reason. So John Charles comes one day. He calls from Paris. He's a shipbroker. He introduces himself. He says, can he come and see us in Lagos? I say, no problem. So he comes. He sits down, he talks for a while, and then he says that since the 70s, he has been looking for an African company or people who will take this business and come in. That is not hard, but that he has been disappointed many times. He comes, he sees them, he supports them, and they just don't get it. They want to be commission agents, but there's something about us that he sees, and he wants to help us. So he says it's a mafia business. That the minute because at this point we had said that we were not selling. Okay, I remember how. So we had said that we were not selling and all of that, but we now needed a ship. So what had happened was, as soon as we needed a ship, they started calling him. Okay, the story is now correct. They started calling him and blocking him, saying that he should not give a ship to us. So when they called him saying, don't give a ship to us, that raised his antenna that who is this person that they are afraid of? So he called and now came. So when he came, he now said, look, that we're getting calls saying that we should not give ships to you. It means that there's something that you are doing that is causing the big international companies to be afraid of you, and that I've been looking for somebody who can give them a run for their money. I will help you. So we said, okay, no problem. So he called a Russian friend of his, who they can threaten from today till next year. Is Russian mafia is not listening to anybody. Threaten him, he's threatening you back. So he told the guy that there's this company, I'm putting my bet on them, give them your ship and all of that. So we got the ship. So once we got the ship, the LC was there, the cargo was there, the ship was there. They threatened this guy. I met him, this ship owner, I met him about 12 years, 15 years later. So Mechanic Slaughter, that was the name. So they gave us a good ship, Mechanic, Slaughter. But anyway, so we got the ship. Now we loaded the product, we loaded the ship. There was a broker in the US that used to sell products. So usually you would call them, you would tell them that you're coming. Before you load, they would have sold it. They don't know what the market price is doing, right? So if you wait until you have loaded, then they set the price. Once they set the price, once you have loaded, they now know that you buy it for $10, say. If you wait until that point before you sell, then if I'm going to buy, I already know your purchase price. So if I'm going to buy, what will I do? I'll come down because you are now desperate. So I'll now tell you, no problem, $8, $7. So usually, what you do is that you make a guesstimate, very good guessing of what you think the price would be, and then you sell slightly higher than that price. So you might lose, you might make some money, but that's how the business runs. So we load the product. We're trying to sell. This company goes to the US and tells every refinery in the US that they should not buy anything, that we're sending products, but it's not true. The vessel is not going to load, that we don't have the product, and that we're just Nigerian 419, that it will not work. So nobody buys. Now, the date for loading is coming. We're now sweating and panicking, but they refuse to budge. So this woman calls me and says that, okay, you know what, American woman, what's her name? Her name skips me now. But she calls and says, all right, again, the same way as John Charles does, what's her name, Tracy? Anyway, so she calls and says, everywhere we have tried to place your product, there's an embargo on it. Everywhere we call, they say, you are not going to do it. Are you sure you will do this? We said, look, you know where we are coming from. The bank has promised you, they've shown you, you've seen the LC, you've seen this. So she says, okay, you know what? You're going to take a hit. So she said, you're going to lose money on this one. But load the product. I will guarantee you that I will sell it, but load it. That the only way she can get somebody to buy it is that that product has to be loaded and it has to arrive in the US. He said, take a chance on me. So we loaded. We had no sale. The bank was going ballistic. The ship. Anyway, it got to the US. Once it landed in the US, they could price it. They knew exactly how much it was. They knew that keeping it in the US, demurrage would kill us. They knew everything. So they hit us low. So she now had to negotiate something that would not kill us, but it was a loss. And it was a painful loss. It wiped us off. It wiped us out completely.
Wow.
But we had to start again.
All right, so you did lose everything.
We lost practically everything that we had ever made. We lost it there and we started again.
So you've talked in the past about going bankrupt twice. Was this the first time?
That was the first one.
Please tell us about the second, real quick.
Okay. Sorry, don't mind them. I'm sure you have questions. Should I answer this one?
We'll come to you.
Okay. So this one, for every entrepreneur who is in this business, you're going to get to a point where you're going to make a decision, a choice on kind of betting the house. You know what that means? Where you're just going to kind of put everything on the line. So we had gone through this one, we had built again and all of that, and there was something that was happening at that point, called arbitrage. So an arbitrage opened up. It just means that if you are normally going in this direction, right, the world prices have changed so much that if you go in this direction, you can make a lot more. But that window is open for just a short period of time. But if you go in there, for as long as you get there within that window, you will make a killing. So that window opened. Now the big companies started going there. So everybody that went there, they were doing excellently. Now, we pursued it, we got our own. We got our location. Now, because arbitrage was on, what happened then was that everybody, before you used to pay after you have loaded, so you load, after you've loaded, then you settle. But at this point, the market was so hot that it became a seller's market. And so the sellers would say to you that you pay 100%. Just pay. You are going to make that arbitrage. Pay me. So this Wale would collect his money 100% upfront. After that, that's your business. You can do what you want. But the arbitrage was covering all of that. So when you came to buy their location, you were told that pay 100%. Now you're sweating. If it does not work, you know you're in trouble. If it works, it's great. But you know the arbitrage is there, so we paid. We now got the locations, got everything, they booked us, they programmed us, everything was going. We're now happy. We're now in the money in our mind, you know. The money had come. My partner got married, went to St. Lucia. I was in Port Harcourt preparing for when the ship would come, when we would load, and everything would be okay. My partner was somewhere in Europe, arranging, making sure the finance and everything was okay. Abacha died. As soon as Abacha died, there was celebration. But for us, we knew that there was trouble. He cut his honeymoon short. I came to Lagos, Abuja. We now went to make sure that, can we save this thing? The new minister came in, and the first thing he did was cancel everything. He canceled everything. Everything. So all that we had paid, we had banked every single thing. We lost it all. So now we had worthless paper. So I went to these big men. When I get to their house, I tell you, okay, these people are your friends now. How many people? Go and talk to them. Like, you use soldiers to flog us, drive us away, send this, locked us out. So we could not get the money back. So all the people who say you want to do business, it's a risk of business. That's your risk. You can't come to us now. If you made money, would you come back and tell us that let's share? So that was the truth. So at that point, we were totally bankrupt. But we came out of it another way, but God helped.
All right, so before we go to questions from the audience, we did ask and we communicated with every one of you to send in questions. A few of you did, and we're going to take 4 of those questions now before we now take a few questions from the floor. So Amara Okoji, I believe she's here, plans to scale her operations into other countries. And seeing you've talked about, in the past, you've talked about not putting all your eggs in one country. We also know that Sahara Group operates in 38 countries around the world. She wants to know what steps she must take to make this happen.
Okay. So first of all, it's a great idea. This bankruptcy story, the second one, kind of made us begin to look outside. So we began to diversify and all of that. So it's great. But if you're going to do anything outside, the same way that you do, the principles are the same in setting up a business, whether you're setting up in Nigeria or elsewhere. And what are the principles? First, you have to know the market. So one of the things that I always used to do is when I get into a country, I would go to the local market. I don't do it again as much, but what I used to do is I would go into taxis first. I do buses, taxis. Why? Because you get the pulse there. So if you go into government offices, they will give you government jargon. You will not know what's really happening. So if I want to go into a country, I don't deal with the government first, right? I will first go and scope the country. I'll go into the local market where they're selling food, clothes, whatever. I'll sit down, gist with the local women, and just hear what they feel about the country. If you hear where people are complaining, then you automatically know that there's an opportunity if you can solve that problem. Does that make sense? So listen to that. So I eat in bukas, okay? So I don't go to the restaurants in the countries. I go into their local bukas, sit down there, hear them out, gist with them, and just listen to what they have to say. Just listen to the people. Then I do taxis, I do buses. So I scope for a little while, get an idea of what the country is, and then I do the other businesses. So you do the corporate, do the floor, do the corporate, do the floor, do the corporate, do the floor. But it will give you a good sense, so know it. Secondly, know who your competition is in the place. So everything, again, whatever you are doing, just do it there. But remember that you need to understand that business. So scope it from the people's perspective. Then be careful who takes you in there. So use the local people to find out whether that person is trusted. So just in conversation, just drop the name of the person. If they abuse that person, you know that. Do you understand? So be careful who. But they can abuse somebody as well who they are abusing because the person is very, very, very tight with the government. So what I'm saying is just get intelligence. Then go in. Now once you've gone in, then trust what makes you Nigerian. Believe me, just what makes you Nigerian, it works in every country. Don't hide it. That is what will make you excel. Believe me, this Nigerian gragra that you have, trust it, carry it there, push it there. You'll be amazed how far you will go.
All right, thank you very much. Akpo Patricia Uye said to ask you, what is the greatest advice you've ever received and the best way to handle disappointment?
I don't know. I'll have to think deep about the greatest advice. But let me talk about handling disappointment, first of all. As far handling disappointment is that you would always have disappointment. So when you know that human beings will disappoint you and circumstances will disappoint you, then when disappointment comes, you're not surprised. I think it's when you're surprised about disappointment that it hits you too deep. So I kind of know that disappointment comes with the terrain. So I don't get too disappointed with it. You just roll with it and you move on. So that's the way it is. On advice, there are so many. I would say from a business perspective, I said it earlier on, I dropped it, that don't chase money. It's funny, but don't chase money. Chase the purpose, chase service, chase making a difference. just hear the word. If you chase money, money is always in front of you. You will never overtake it. It's always ahead of you. So the money is not everything.
Okay. Adedeji said to ask you, at what stage in the life cycle of the business and its operations did you introduce corporate governance?
Okay, so in the former company where I worked in EMSA, the Brazilian company, corporate governance was very strict. So even though I was earning whatever I was earning and all of that, and I had this corner office and all of that, the Brazilians did not, I had to learn accounting by force. Because if I went out to a restaurant and I came back and that receipt was not there and I didn't retire it, it's coming from my salary straight away, immediately they would. So then I had to balance everything, and I realized that if you did not keep those things and you forget immediately, I assure you, what you spent last week, you will not remember if you didn't write it. What you spent yesterday, you will forget. So when they started hitting my pockets every other day, I learned to sit down and balance my accounts, balancing. Then something happened with taxation, which also taught me, again in that company. There was a Nigerian guy who used to sort out the taxes. So he would get up, he would collect the money, he would go and sort out tax, then he would bring the tax receipt, and I never bothered to check. And then one day, tax authorities showed, I think it was when I was, either when I was winding up or just before winding up, they showed up in the office and they brought all the tax, they asked for the tax receipts, I brought out the tax receipts and all of that and showed them, and they said it was fake. And I said, no way, it's not possible. I went back with them to the tax office, they brought everything, showed me and all of that, and it was not registered at all. He was going to the tax office, he was settling with them, they were giving me original receipts, but the tax was not followed through, it was not implemented, it was negotiating. And the tax authorities just came back and said that everything that you owe, you have to pay. They didn't care about what happened, what story, and no matter how old, and all of that. So those two lessons kind of taught me something very, very early, that you need to follow through, and you need to make sure that every document that you have, if somebody tells you that they're going to the tax office, they're going there and all of that, just pick up the phone and call the tax office. Call the same person and say, you know what, I want to see you, come here. So I learned those things. So when we started Sahara, of the three of us, I probably was, okay, my other partner a bit, but I was the one who had that experience of HR, of accounting, even though one was an accountant, of governance. So from the beginning, as soon as we came in, I just started setting those things in place because I wasn't ready for anything. So we just started putting it very early, accounting, auditing, taxation, all those things just were in the HR process. So it was early. I can't differentiate a point that it had to come. We just started making that early.
All right then, so we will go to the audience now. Questions, I'm going to take just two. Sorry, could someone, okay.
Yes. My question is, in Nigeria today, there's a challenge with running partnerships in Nigeria. And from the story, you guys just probably just had a gentleman agreement started. So can you tell us how that grew from being brokers to having one?
Okay, let me take the second question as well.
My question on export. What would you say is best in terms of payment? Because I don't.
In terms of payment of what? Receivables? Whether naira or dollar?
Is else is the best?
It's else the best, okay. No problem. All right.
Alright, so there are two schools of thought. The first is that invest every money you make from the business into the business. And the second is you need to also develop a separate financial statement from the business. So at what point in your business did you set aside your own financial statement that is separate from the business? And the second question is, if anything is to happen to you today, what would be the one thing you wish for your business and for your family?
All right, so partnership came to me almost naturally because, again, when I was in school with this Efiko boy and all of that, we ended up as a partnership of three. When we started Sahara and all of that, we ended up also as a partnership of three. Partnerships are difficult for many people But what do I find about partnerships? I think it's the best form of business that you can do. Why? Because it brings different strengths to the party. If you want your partnerships to succeed, this is what we did. You don't have to do it that way, but this is how we did it. So the first aspect of it was that money was not an issue. In Sahara, while I was there, any one of us, we had sole signatory for either of us. Any one of us could sign at any point in time, which means that anyone could carry the right, sign the entire money of the company and run away if you wanted to. But again, it's foolish. It depends on what you're looking for. Number two, when we did the partnership, we divided it equally, 33, 33, 33. So there was no, oh, it's my own idea. I started the business, so I must have 70%, 80%. You came in, you will have 10, you will have 15, and all of that. Why was that important? Even though we were young and maybe we didn't think about it, but my partner actually said something at the time that, you know what, as long as everybody is equal, then nobody feels left out or cheated. And why is this important? Today it's your business, it's your idea. You are the one that brought others. Tomorrow, the business that will bring money to the company is not yours. It will be somebody else's. Now, one of your partners, okay? If you give me 10%, I will only give you 10% of input now. The day I have an idea that comes, what will happen is that I will not partner with you. I will take it and I will go elsewhere. Because if I came to you and tell you, okay, you take 10% now, you will not agree because you have been the big person all along. So as a result of that, within Sahara, what we found is business. Didn't matter whose idea it was and all of that, you would come in, you would discuss it, and also no one person felt left out. So that's how we manage partnerships. The third thing, so money was not an issue, equal share. The third thing that we did was that we kept third parties out of the business. And what do I mean third parties? Spouses, family, and all. Now, again, my wife is my best friend and all that. And so are others. But family and spouse can destroy partnerships very, very easily. Not intended, but just by dropping things. See that one, your friend's partner is carrying this bag, you are driving this one. We have different personalities. Some like to dress flamboyantly, others are quiet. But if you start looking at that, oh, this one travels this way, you go here, all those things, so you just keep it out. You just left the business for the business. So that worked. Money, 5 minutes. Okay, good. Your question was on financial statements, so money. So what did we do? Set up. Again, you don't have to do it this way, but this was us as well. Coming into the business, we realized one thing, that the day we started, and you don't have that boundary, then finish your job. So the first 3 years, even the toughest 3 years of our life in the business, not one of us earned salary. Okay, men's room paid for whatever, paid them a stipend, so they survived on that one. I survived on savings and my wife, remember? My wife, coping, and all of that. And so the business was the business. Everything went into the business was the business. Every expense from the business was the business, nothing else. So you knew. So what that did for us immediately was that it helped us personally to set our expectations different from the business. So the business can be a multi-billion-dollar business, but you don't have to be a multi-billion-dollar person. Why? Do you understand? Okay. Because at the end of the day, it's the business that gives you whatever. So you asked what were expectations thereafter. And one day I called some young people in my office and I said to them that, okay, you know what? Assume that we're all in the jet, we're all flying somewhere and all of that, and all 3 of us die today. What happens? What happens to you? What happens to the business? God forbid. I said, please, leave God forbid there. Let us talk about life after us. Now, I want you to think 50 years after I'm dead, gone, 50 years after, what do we need to do to make this company survive thereafter? Can your business? So I had that discussion with them, and I started pushing it into their minds that a day will come when we will not all be there. And so 2 years ago, it was easy for me to just generally get up and leave. Why? Because we had set what needed to be in place for the company to continue to run, even when we're not there. So, but you need to think that, and you need to push it. You need to put things in place to let that happen. Payments, I know today, back in the days, LCs was what it is, but today, you have so many payments mechanisms that I don't think looking for whether it's an LC is the right way matters anymore. There are many ways. People do transactions on PayPal, you do transactions with Apple Pay, you do transactions with cards, what is important has always been the case is that can they trust you? You see, at the end of the day, it's trust that is the issue. Why did we used to do payments with LC and then you have to confirm the LC? It was just Nigeria. They just did not trust Nigeria. And so for LCs coming out of Nigeria, they wanted to have a letter of credit and they needed it to be confirmed. So I remember that when we were selling to Shell and we said to Shell that, open an LC to us, they started laughing at us that what? We're not opening LCs, that we're bigger than, our credit is bigger than any bank that you want. So we're not going to open the LC. We're going to give you a letter saying that we're buying. Supply it. Now that's a level of trust. So there came a point when we got to a particular stage where we also said that, no, we're not opening LCs to certain places, that we have come this far. We're going to supply you, you come and buy from us, you trust our payment. So what type of payment document you use depends on the level of trust. Gentlemen, and ladies, let me not miss my flight.
All right.
I know that we have many more questions, but...
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tonye Cole. Thank you very much, sir. So if you go in the room, so I can see we can present.
This is Under 40 CEOs.